All right, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Dads. Edward Zia is my special guest I'm having a chat with today. How are you, Edward?
Daniel, I got to say, it's an absolute honor to be connected to a fellow dad. And Daniel, I just want to say our viewers and fans are very good-looking, exceptional people.
Except for myself, mate. So I won't give myself too much of a rap on that front because I know we'd be telling lies. But before we get into what a bit more about what you do, tell us a bit more about you and your story, and let's find out about your background and a bit into who you are.
Oh, well, that's very cool. I almost never get asked that question. It always goes straight to marketing. So I'd be honored to give you a condensed version. So very long story short, I come from a proud Australian Persian. So I come from a Persian background. Proud Australian. Grew up in some very mixed, questionable circumstances, including a bit of time on the streets. And actually had enough and went and joined the army when I was 19, a bit like a movie, right?
Well, that's the thing to do back in the day, wasn't it? For some people,
it still is. I got a lot of young guys are saying, "Ed, should I join the army?" I'm like, "Yeah. You might get injured or die, but it's worth it." So I do mean it. Yeah,
you won't make that mistake twice.
Yeah, no. But I always say, very good move. Anyway, what happened to me was, I was in the army. Did some work with the federal government as well, doing a few secret projects, which I can't really talk about. And what happened was I ended up getting really badly injured on a drug sting. And that was sort of the end of Edward Zia and my military policing career. So went back into corporate Australia. I went into corporate Australia, I should say. And I ended up getting really bad PTSD. And what happened to me just before I went 30, I ended up kind of losing everything. Sort of couldn't hold down my job, got really sick. And yeah, I ended up being a homeless veteran, what they all fear just before I was 30. And and basically for me, my whole 30s was coming back, starting my business, and a total winning act of redemption. Now I'm one of Australia's top linked influencers. I don't care. So now I'm winning, but I'll tell you what, I've certainly crawled over broken glass to get here. I can tell you that.
Well, that's an interesting backstory. Like, if you don't mind, if we can touch on that a little bit, if you feel comfortable talking about that, like how, for someone, especially right now, we're obviously going through a lot right now while people are struggling with business, and some people have lost everything, like through no fault of their own, just basically overnight. And for someone who's obviously come back from something like that, for someone who may be struggling right now, what would you say? Like, what helped get you through for starters? And like, because you're not reading from a textbook, you're reading from life experience.
Yeah, so probably three elements to that. So one was being a man of faith. So again, I'm a proud Christian. I love Jesus and pray all the time. So again, I'm into Jesus and Christianity. However, completely respectful of everyone's faith or religion. We're all ultimately worshiping the same God in our own unique way. So what I say to people is, whatever you're into, is be a person of faith, whatever stream, be it you got your own interpretation of God, you're a Muslim, you're a Hindu, whatever, that's awesome. Go for it, right? Really get into your faith is the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say as well is you got to take daily action. So if you just wallow in your own self-pity, you won't get anywhere. You got to do stuff every day. And that brings me to a third point. As long as you're taking one baby step every day, you will be successful. You may not think you've done a lot that day, but if you're taking one positive step of action, that's awesome. It'll gradually take you there on your journey of success.
So obviously that's something important that people can take in right now. So what would you say, if we can look back at some of those small steps that you had to take when you were at rock bottom? And so like something as simple, like, small wins, like you mentioned, but like, what would you break that down into for you at the time, for someone who may need a bit of help right now?
Yeah, well, what it was for me was when I was homeless, I was suffering from PTSD pretty badly, right? From fallout from my military injury. And so for me, it was sort of getting some help for that, right? So getting a bit of help for that. At the time, there weren't that many. This is over 10 years ago. In those days, you didn't have the government services available then that you do now, right? So it's a little bit different in that era, right? But for me, it was getting some help. Actually, a few local churches helped me out. So actually seeking a bit of help for my mental illness. The second thing that was very interesting was that getting my resume together while I was a homeless guy and pretending I wasn't homeless. And I ended up getting a job, you're going to laugh at this, selling health goods in shopping malls, like, those little vibration machines.
Yes, yeah. Whatever works. Whatever gets you back on your feet. I'm not going to judge
And
someone earning $1.
anyway, and it turned out I was really good. Like it paid like 20. You get like, I think I could be wrong. It was like you get something like $8 an hour, but you get 20% commission, right? And I was really good at it, so I ended up making all this money that helped get my life back on track.
So, and that's obviously led you down the path that you are today. But because I guess indirectly you were marketing you were marketing the product, but you're also marketing yourself, and people buy off people that you know and who you like and who you trust. So that obviously worked for you in that and got you on the path to where you are now. But tell us about, before we get into that sort of things, tell us about the family side more now. I know you've got a couple of kids, I believe.
Yeah. So I was very lucky. About 5-6 years ago, actually through a business networking event, I was sitting there and this very attractive Asian lady came into our networking event, and I was sort of immediately drawn to her, checking her out the whole time. I was actually running the group at the time, so I was running this business breakfast, and I was like, "Oh, hello." I was like, "Hello, how are you?" And what it was, this wonderful lady, eventually, she was actually interested in hiring me as a mentor or coach. And we ended up meeting for coffee, and an hour later, it just morphed into a date. And then it was just like instantly official, it was just crazy.
Nice.
And so, it was amazing. So we met at a business networking event. Similar time, we both sort of met when we were both older in life, if that makes sense. So, we're both sort of, older in life. So we sort of met, and it was just really funny. So when we met, it was sort of like, first date, we're talking about children. That's how quickly it was.
Well, I guess, the beauty about that is you know what you want in life when you get to a stage where you're comfortable with who you are and comfortable with what you're looking for, and you don't have to try and please everyone like you do when you're young, and like you make all the mistakes when you're young and stupid. And
one of the best things I did was I stopped. So before I met my wife, I completely stopped dating, and it was the best thing I've ever done. Just stop dating. By all means, if a lovely lady would say something to me, I'd listen, but I just stopped dating.
Yeah. I stopped too, but not by choice.
Sorry?
I stopped too, but not by choice before I met my wife. So there wasn't many takers.
Oh, fair enough. I had the opposite problem, right? And I know I'm not being egotistical. It was a bit of a problem because I was going out of all these ladies and it was just messing me up. And then I kind of realized I'm out. It's like the next woman I date, I want to marry. Yeah. So I'm like, I just stopped dating. And whenever a girl would approach me, I'd always say to them, look, I'm sort of looking to get married and have children. And they'd be, oh, okay, thanks, Ed.
Fair enough.
That's good. Whereas my wife-to-be said, oh, no, I'm in for that. Yeah, I'll sign up for that. Okay, cool.
Well, it worked out, didn't it?
Yeah, but it was funny. I said to a lot of ladies that, and they're like, no, I'm out of here. Okay, cool, goodbye. It was really funny.
Well, it's good. It's a good conversation breaker anyway. At least you know where you stand right from the get-go, I think.
Yeah. And I think on that note, I wish, and I love what you just said a few sentences ago, Daniel. I wish, and this is what I would certainly say to my children and anyone watching. I used to be a real people pleaser, and I so wish I wasn't like that. I always felt the need I had to please people and do this and that, and it was sort of in my early mid-30s, I really broke out of that paradigm, and it was a very releasing thing to break out of.
Well, I think that's just. I was talking about this with someone who I was having a chat with yesterday, and but by the time by the time this is released, it'll be released as well. But we're saying the same thing. I think when you're talking about kids, especially, they just want to. I think they want to be liked, and they don't want to, rub people up the wrong way, and they like to keep people happy. And that's when you get a bit more comfortable in your own skin as you get older, and then you realize, well, okay, no, I'm not really happy here, or I don't want this, or I don't want that, and you stand up for yourself a bit more, I think.
But it's also social engineering, though. So I don't blame myself for having that trait, because society brings us up to be people pleasers, because a people pleaser is someone who follows.
Yep.
Right. And we're brought up that way. So it wasn't like I formed these views myself. I was brainwashed into adopting these views, right? Because I was never ever told, Ed, you should do your own thing, and who gives a F about anyone. The system always said, no, you got to do what you're told, you got to do this, you got to do that. And so again, it wasn't my fault I was thinking that. That was just a byproduct of the educational system I've been through, right?
Well, I think you're at school, you're told to shut up and do the right thing and to do what you're told and fall into line, I guess. And you probably had that experience in the military too, maybe.
Yeah, but it's slightly different. I think it's not just school. It's not, again, I have a lot of respect for our educational system. It's more just our overall civilization. You're sort of taught to do what you're told, don't rock the boat. You have to have everyone liking you, and you can't be an independent free thinker. And I suppose for me and that the result of that thinking was me being a homeless veteran, right? So that thinking led to I was smart enough to see how my own thinking led to my destruction.
Yeah.
And so then it's a matter of, okay, my old paradigm of I've got to please everyone is just not working out. We need to start new again. It's like, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life? And so it sort of went from, I suppose, that collectivist mentality to a real, individual libertarian sort of mentality, right? And that's and obviously that sets you up to be an entrepreneur. To be an entrepreneur, you can't really be a collectivist. You really have to think with your own mind, and you have to think very independently and very critically.
Well, I think that's where we all start off in a way, isn't it? Because I know when I was working for people back in the day, like about 15 years ago now, it's been a while, but you get sick of doing stuff a certain way and you think, hang on a minute, I can do this better. Maybe it's a bit of ego. Maybe it's a bit of experience when you know it works and you know what doesn't work. And other conversations I've had with people, it's the same thing. Like they realise there's a gap where something could be provided differently, I think. I don't know. I think that's maybe what leads us all out there when you do start questioning things, which isn't a bad thing, and it leads us to where we are today.
Yeah. And I think when the system lets you down, that's when you really ask the hard questions, because I always was hard worker, did what I was told, but I wound up living out of my car. And it's sort of like, hang on, of the system I've been educated with, I've done a flawless job of following the system. And then I started to realize, hang on, this isn't my fault, right? It's the system's fault. And it's like, hang on. So mentally, I'm following this program system that society wants me to follow. And it's like, hang on, I'm following the wrong, it's the whole old saying, right ladder against the wrong wall.
Yep.
I'm climbing in the wrong area. And it was a whole total rethink of my paradigm. And eventually in my early 30s, I had a few jobs to get me going, but as quickly as I could, I just worked on my own business, which, now we're kicking butt today, which we're very grateful for. But it was sort of that, I guess when the system, and speaking now to Corona and what's happening, a lot of people have lost their jobs and businesses, and it's not their fault. The system has failed you. You didn't fail, the system failed you. And you need to remember that, because whilst you're the victim of the system, it's not your fault it happened to you, but you got to start really rethinking. In a way, it is your fault because you're following the system you're trained in. So now it's time to look at things differently and approach afresh with a critical, independent frame of reference.
It's a good thing, I think, now. Like, obviously, none of us wants all this to happen, but because it has, we can't do anything about it. And like you did with your experience in the past, where you just basically you moved on. Okay, what can I do differently? And you thought, okay, where's the way that I can change? Maybe it's a good chance for someone now to take those words on board, to have a look at things, to realise if things, okay, what can I do better? What can I improve? And all that leads me into the next question I have for you is, tell me now a little bit more where obviously all of your experience led you into Excellence Above. Mm-hmm. You want to tell us a bit more about that? And you probably get a bit of an idea from having a listen to you and the way that you talk. I think people can get an idea of where you're heading, but if you just want to give us a bit more of an insight.
Yeah, so big shout out to my wonderful wife Lassie. We both work in the business and help people. And so what we do is we help people around the world become master persuaders and influencers. And we've got hundreds of people we work with around the world. We love them all to bits. We got clients all across Australia, the Middle East, Canada, North America, UK, France, various parts of Europe. A lot of places I probably haven't even thought of or mentioned. And we're really lucky to have it. And basically what it is that we help people become exactly that, master persuaders and influencers. So they get to really stand out and lead what they do. Instead of them having to chase business, business comes to them.
That's an interesting way to look at it, because you're not sound as that desperate person going on. If you take it back to that old date mentality that you were mentioning before, where you have everyone come to you and the confidence that comes from that, and you're not coming across as that desperate, sleazy salesperson.
Yeah, which is ironic, because I remember in my 20s, girls wouldn't touch me, right? They just weren't interested. Right? It was like, screw that guy, he's a loser. In my mid 30s, when I started really taking it off, it's sort of like I would have I would have at least an offer a week, right? At least an offer a week. And eventually I started having enough. I started saying, look, I'm looking for marriage and kids. And like, whoa, out of here. It was like that, right? Whoa, out of here. And it was just, and I just took my time and I said, one day I'll meet a lady that will agree to marrying me and having kids. I'll meet a lady crazy and awesome enough to do that, right?
Well, you did, and as it turns out, it's worked out from the business sense as well.
Yeah, it took about 10 months. So about 10 months of that thinking paid off. But I suppose the thing is, though, is with the whole influence, and this is what I say to anyone listening, right? With the whole influencer thing, the whole point, I'm just going to devil's advocate myself for the moment. The whole point of becoming an influencer, it's not about ego. It's not about likes. It's not about comments. It's not about having, 10, 20, 30, 100,000 followers. What it's about is in whatever, niche or area you're in, people see you as a leader and they come to you, right? That's what it's all about.
So how would you suggest right now for someone who may be struggling business-wise? The way I look at this, for me now, it's about putting about content. So, and
that's part of it.
So it's about creating value for people, and so they're building that trust from you. So they're seeing the same face. What would you say is a way for someone that they could start right now? That's easy. That all you need is your phone or your social media thing to start writing away or recording away. What would you say is an easy way for someone that they can start doing right now to help create that influence amongst their little group of tribe or followers, whatever you want to, client-based potential clients?
So just to let you know, I've got a beautiful Samsung S10 right here, right? There's my wonderful wife there. It just came up as I turned it on. Nice. So stunning. As you can tell, you can obviously tell why I was checking her out when I saw her at the breakfast, right?
I think like all of us, we're batting above our average, so.
Totally. But yeah, so what I always say to people is this: the first place is I'll just backtrack just a little bit, then I'll talk content. The first thing is it depends on what's happened to you during Corona. So let's say you've lost your business, you had to close it down, and I feel for you, by the way, and you had to go into liquidation or whatever, right? You may need to create a new business. You might need to sort of work out a new direction, right? Which is a conversation that we probably don't have time for today, right? But let's assume for the moment you've still got your business. You might need to pivot it or tweak it. You might need to change a few things, but let's say you've got a business model already, right? So I'll sort of put that assumption.
I think that's what the majority of people are heading at the moment. Like some have had, a small loss. Some have had more significant, but I think that's where we're heading rather than people who've lost it all.
Yep, exactly. So then the next step is, and make sure you get, talking Australia or wherever you are in the world, make sure you go for whatever government benefits you can. Like be it in Australia, we've got, JobKeeper, Job Finder, various stimulus packages. So please talk to your local accountant in your jurisdiction to get what you're entitled to. Second point, so now talking content, right? So talking content. So, and there's three main platforms that people work with, or four or five actually, but the common ones are obviously LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You've got the newcomer of TikTok. You got YouTube, you got Twitter, whatever you're into, right? Now, I'm a LinkedIn guy. That's my primary platform, right? And all the other platforms are secondary, right? So what I'm talking is more talking through the lens of LinkedIn, but what I'm saying does apply to other platforms. But what's very important, is what I say to a lot of people, and you can still use your mobile phone, right? Start doing a video a day. So be it you're a YouTuber, a TikToker, or a LinkedIner, or a Facebooker, start doing a video a day. Just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, just giving tips and value from your professional frame of reference.
That's the easy way to do it. And I think you want to have something that puts your little spin on it, and based on your personality, not pretending to be someone that you're not, but it's just making you come across as relatable. That's the way I try and do my stuff with, fitness, for example. It's you do a bit of a home workout tip or this or that, whatever, to keep people on track and to keep them sane during these times when you need an outlet.
Yeah. The second one is you need what's called leverage. So, for example, and I was doing this before Corona, thank God, but you might have to start this. But putting out daily content is awesome, but then you need a sales system. So, and then we usually say the next thing you need is leverage. So, what a very good example of leverage is, you might do a weekly live webinar. You might do a weekly Zoom call. I actually do both. So on Monday nights, I'll do a free weekly webinar delivered through the GoToWebinar platform, which I love. And then on Thursday nights, we do a networking Zoom. So we're using them, and I'll have anything from, I'll have at least 30 people attend each event, right? So in 2 events, I've got 60 people in front of me digitally, which is awesome, all around the world, which is great. Now that's very important because daily content is daily content is good for building your brand and all that. But then you need leverage. You need sort of leverage activities like that because that brings your community together. And the third thing is you need to sell whatever you're selling. So then you got to have like a good landing page, a good sales page that converts people into customers.
Beauty. Well, I think that's very practical stuff that people can start putting in. And really, you don't need a lot of experience with it. You just got to get in front of the cameras these days are better than the stuff that used to cost $1,000, or whatever back in the old days, when you just got to turn on your iPhone or your Samsung and hit record.
Yeah. Well, what's happened to me is I've had a lot of people ask me all the time, Ed, what camera are you using? Or what rig? A rig, the carrying rigs?
Yeah.
What rig are you using? What's your microphone? Samsung S10.
Yeah,
they're like, no, yeah. I'm like, okay, I believe you, Ed, because and that's how far technology has come. So what I say to people, one of the best things you can do is, and again, look, I am biased. I'm not the hugest Apple fan out there. I'm like a Samsung, Google, Microsoft sort of guy, but just trying to remove my bias just for the next 10 seconds, which is hard, right? Be it you're in the Apple stream or you're in the Microsoft stream and Google stream.
I'll stick up for Apple. I'll go in the bat for them.
Yeah, well, someone
they got me in.
Someone does. Someone's got to be anti-Trump. So yeah, but seriously though, putting my own bias and jokes aside, if you're in the Apple stream, get the best Apple phone you can.
Yeah.
Right. Because again, I'm not an Apple guy, so I got to watch what I say because I don't know it inside out. But be it you get the best Apple phone. If you're a Samsunger, get the best Samsung phone. Because what it is that you'll have the best video quality, the best image quality. So what you produce with it will be of great quality.
Nice. That's very important.
And it'll be fast enough. It'll work correctly, so you can use your apps correctly. So be it you're a TikToker, or a LinkedIner, or a Facebooker, or you're a YouTuber or a Twitterer, whatever platform you're into. And that makes the next point. What I always say to people is you got to select your primary platform. If you try and do them all, it'll be a disaster. You got to select the platform that you're going to make your home.
Nice. And I think that comes down to whatever you're comfortable with, whether you're a visual person, a written person. And I think it's important to have a couple of, or for me personally, obviously, I don't hit one domain. I like to spread it out a little bit, but I guess it comes back to what you say about focusing on one. So I'll probably focus on the written content side of things for me personally, but I know everyone's got their own little specialty, but each to their own. And I think so long as you're producing content in some form that's getting seen or heard or read, one way or another, I think you'll be doing something and you'll be winning.
Yeah, if it's being seen and heard by the right people and in enough of a quantity. Because, for example, I'll put a video up on LinkedIn and get 2,000 views. That video might get 30 views on Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, so for example, I used to be quite a Facebooker back in the day, but eventually I found that LinkedIn, I ended up moving straight in the LinkedIn direction, and I achieved more in a year on LinkedIn than I did in 4 years on Facebook.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I always say that to people is you got to make sure that the platform is rewarding you for the input. Now, I'm not having a shot here at Facebook. It's just that Facebook, I use Facebook as a secondary platform, but Facebook as for me, LinkedIn is the right place for me.
Yeah, well, and it's obviously worked because that's where, like you were saying before, like the amount of new people that you're having that have come across your content each day is pretty amazing.
Well, we're growing at about 250 to 500 followers a day now, right?
Well, that's how I first discovered you, is via LinkedIn. So,
and I remember in the heydays of my Facebook, if I grew, 500, if I grew 200 fans a week, I'd be happy. Whereas these days, what I would do a week in Facebook, I'm now doing in an evening, like overnight. Like I'll go to bed and I'll wake up and there's another 200 followers.
Nice.
And so what I'm saying to people is make sure you pick the right platform that suits you, your customers there, and it's commercially viable.
I think that's what it comes back down to. Where your customers are. It's the old marketing thing. Where can you find your customers and who's got them already?
Yeah, exactly.
For instance, LinkedIn's got them. But let's go back to the family side of things. Like, with a couple of kids under your belt, what would you say is a bit of parenting advice that you can have, or from experience? Like, obviously, don't expect you to be like the all parenting, like wise knowledge guru, but everyone's got their stories that works for them and something they can help pass on for someone, who may be, trying to combine the business side of things at the moment and the parent side of things. You're on top of that, and just get some insights you can share. That'd be great.
Yeah, what I always say, what my own lesson was, and what I always say to people that helps a lot of people is, you got to stick to what you're good at. So when it comes to you and your partner, right, you have to be honest as to what you're good at and what you're not good at, and you sort of divide it up that way. So for example, I'll tell you what I'm not good at, right, with kids. I'm not very good at playing with kids. Okay, I'm just not very good at it. I'm not very good at getting the kids dressed. I'm not very good at that, right? And I'm also not very good at when there's problems. I'm not very good at being patient, if that makes sense.
We can all have our moments like that. It's where you get cut a bit short, but
yeah. But then I'm outstanding at cooking, cleaning, picking up stuff, keeping the household moving, that sort of thing, right? So what it is that if I try and do something I'm not good at, it'll take 3 times longer than if, say, my wife does it, and the result won't be there.
Yeah. And hopefully skills are, complementing.
Yeah, well, let's say there's 2 options. Ed, cook us a meal and clean up, or change the kids. I'd be better off cooking a meal and cleaning up because I can do that really well. Whereas if I try and change the kids, it's going to take me longer. They're going to be crying and I won't do a good job, and no one will be happy. I'll be unhappy because I've done a poor job. The kids will be unhappy, and then the partner will be rightfully unhappy. So what it is that you kind of got to be honest as to what you're not good at and what they're good at, and vice versa. And you naturally take the jobs you're both good at.
Nice. Well, that's a good little way to run it, I think.
Yeah, it works great. So, for example, Lassie doesn't have to worry about the meals in the kitchen, and I don't have to worry about, dressing kids or listening to their tantrums, because I'm not good at that. I can do it, but I'm not going to do a good job that anyone will be happy with.
And then it means the time you do spend with them is obviously more quality time as well, because everyone's happy. And
yeah, because I don't want to do a job that I'm poor at. I don't want to do a poor job. No one wants me doing a poor job, me included, right? So again, it comes down to giving people the right responsibilities and areas, and you've got to respect the other person. So for example, if my wife says the kids feel this way, I'm not going to question that, because she's more emotionally in tune with the children than I am.
Sure.
Right? And I wouldn't question that. Yeah, the kids feel such and such. Okay. You know it better than me. I'm not going to ask questions.
Fair enough.
So I think role clarity, and everyone does what they're good at. And you got to respect the other person. Sort of like they're going to be better at you than certain things in you, and it's okay.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? And then for everyone, and it works to happy families, and everyone's on top, and you're not doing your head in by the end of the day. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah, no one wants to fail. So the best way of setting someone up to fail is get them to do something they're not good at.
Yes. That's a nice way to put it.
So let's say set up someone to fail. Like, let's say, forget families, mate. You're like, I'm sure you've managed a lot of people in your life. You look like someone who's managed large teams, right? I get that vibe from you. You know the deal when you're running a team of people. If you ask someone to do something they're not good at, everyone's going to lose.
Yep.
The person will probably do a poor job. They'll be embarrassed. Their team members will think that person's a loser. Everyone loses, and the job will take 5 times longer, and it won't work.
No, I like it. It's a nice way, and easy. It's an easy analogy, isn't it? Put the family as in a business sense, run it like a business, and nice and efficient and smooth, and you'll get the best result.
Yeah, and you got to admit what you're not good at. Hey, I'm not good at this. I can do it, but you're going to be unhappy, and everyone's going to lose. But I can. Yeah, I'm not saying that you don't do certain things, but you got to minimize doing stuff you're not good at, because everyone loses in that situation, and you just burn extra time.
So, it's a good little way to take in. Now, if we can finish off, one thing I like to wrap up on with is if we could go a little bit left field, and you've obviously had a lot of life experiences, both positive and negative. What would you go back and tell your younger self, knowing what you know now? It can be any stage of your life. It might be for you what led you down your path. as some might say, you might tell your younger self not to go and join the army, but that in itself has led you to where you are now based on the hard times you've had, you could argue. So is there anything that you would go back and say?
Even though I got injured badly and almost died, I'd gladly tell my younger self. I actually wouldn't tell my younger self that. I'd deliberately mislead my younger self. No, younger, don't worry. Everything will be fine.
Dream.
Yeah, everything will be good. I'll just lie to my younger self. Because so what? Yeah, if I died serving my country, so what? What a nobler death. But no, but what I probably would do, I think, is if I could, I'd probably go back to myself, maybe in my mid-20s. I'd probably hit myself. Because in my mid-20s, where I really dropped, I was a real people pleaser in those days. And that really led me awry, right? Okay. I'd probably go back to my mid-20s, and I'd say two things. Myself. Ed, get some proper therapy for your PTSD, which is going to hit you like a truck in about 2 or 3 years, which it did. But stop the people pleasing. I'd say number one, stop the people pleasing, because if I stopped the people pleasing, I would have ended up starting my business earlier, and I probably would have avoided being homeless.
Yes.
Well, so I'd probably go back to myself at that point.
Yeah.
If I stopped the people pleasing, I would have been way better off now.
Okay, well, that's an interesting way to do it, and that's it goes back to what you said earlier as well, that you don't have to be like that, and it's something that you only learn, unfortunately, when you get older.
Well, I'm not sure if that's correct, because I know people in their 60s that haven't learned that lesson.
Oh, that's true, I guess.
You have learned it, but I don't think it's an age thing. I think, actually, if I can disagree, I think most people, I would say at least 90% of the population never learn that lesson. They go through their whole lives being a people pleaser. Because I know grandmothers and grandfathers who are people pleasers.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Look, that's an interesting conversation, isn't it? Because, and it goes back to being a kid earlier, when everyone wants to be popular and everyone wants to be liked. But there is times when you do realise, and I don't know whether it's part of a little thing. I never would have thought as a kid that you'd go off and run your own business and do all that. But maybe there's a switch that clicks or whatever when that stage does happen, and you realise that you don't have to please everyone, and not everyone is your ideal client or your ideal customer.
Yeah, I think it depends if the system fails you, because again, I did everything I was told. I was a good little Vegemite. And I was a homeless guy before the age of 30. And upon reflection, it's like, what did I do wrong? Nothing. You did what society told you to do. There's the problem.
So that's the tip.
There's the problem.
The rule breaker.
Yeah, that was the problem. And I don't know. And I think it depends, because when the system fails you and you wind up homeless or injured or whatever, right? That's when that breaks your reality, right? That's a crack to your reality, because you realize the program or the system I'm running in my mind is not working out. If my thinking was so awesome, this is what I said to myself, and I was correct, by the way. If my thinking and view of the world was so awesome, then why am I a homeless guy living in my car?
Yeah.
Well, Ed, your thinking is not as awesome as you think it is, right? And then I realized exactly what happened is that I've been following, the system failed me, right? And again, I know a lot of people listening right now would be going, oh yeah, the system has failed me right now, because think about it, right? You've done the right thing, you've worked hard, this virus has come out, and I'm not blaming, by the way, I'm not blaming the government. The government rightfully had to, if the government didn't do what it did, you'd have millions of people infected and dying.
It'd be anarchy. At the end of the day, you'd be lining up, and luckily we don't have guns available like the States, because otherwise everyone would be going around robbing everyone, because something had to be done. There's no rule book to follow.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what our glorious government has done. And you could have just lost your business. You could have just lost everything, right? And it's sort of like, you didn't ask for that, but it's an example of the system failing you, right? The system has failed you, right? So then, to me, it's a matter of, okay. And when I say system, I'm not trying to be like, anarchy, burn it down. I'm not saying that, right? I'm not a Bernie bro or a weirdo from Twitter, right? I'm not saying that, right? But what I'm more getting at is that the system has failed you. So you need to change the way you're approaching reality. So, for example, let's say you owned a cafe, a restaurant, you've lost everything, right? My advice to you is probably don't own a cafe again. But maybe you should,
Take a charge for that advice.
Yeah, it's sort of like, maybe don't own a restaurant again is my sort of advice to you, right? or maybe go into a food delivery business or something.
Well, there's a way to innovate for most people anyway, isn't there? Yeah, like a delivery, they've outsourced their waitresses or waiters onto delivery drivers, and it creates a whole new avenue that they'll be able to look at down the track. So there's still options there, I think, anyway. But it's like I think you've got some. You've obviously led a very interesting life experience. You've got lots of life experience. You've obviously made a great success of yourself now and come out of it as a positive. If someone is listening to this and is interested more about your LinkedIn story, about your meetings that you do on GoTo, or where's the spot where someone can find out more about all the coaching programs that you do?
Yeah, the best thing that I can do is please feel free to add me on LinkedIn. You can add me on Facebook and Instagram as well, but more add me on LinkedIn. And when you connect with me, just write in, Daniel Munday is a handsome guy. So I know you've seen the interview. Right? Well, so add me on LinkedIn. You can also add me on Facebook and Insta as well, but I'm more of a LinkedIn guy. But feel free to add me on those other platforms if you want to as well.
We'll put the LinkedIn link in the show notes as well, just to make it easy for everyone. But that's the best way to get on top. And you do put out a lot of content on there, which is well worth checking out. So I can attest to that.
And Daniel, if I can turn the interview around for a second, what's your interpretation of things, and where are you taking everything? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Enough about me. Where are you taking this all?
So for me right now, being in fitness industry, I'm lucky enough that I can still operate with one-on-one clients for my personal training. But for the majority of stuff I've had to do for all my groups, I've had to take online to Zoom. Yeah. So for one, that's made me think something outside the box that I wouldn't have thought about a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
In turn, the positive of that has been that it's led to clients of mine who moved away. When they moved back into state, or they've moved down the coast or whatever, they've been able to rejoin in those workouts. So that's the positive that I'm taking out of it now. And obviously the other benefit is just doing it on Zoom with the early morning starts. I get to see my kids in the morning too. So for most mornings, so that's another win as well. So I get to be at the madhouse at home in the morning. So
incredible.
But no, look, it's obviously I'm looking forward to life getting back to normal, but the way I'm looking at it is, and it's also giving me the chance to focus on this, to be honest. It's an idea I had in the back of my head since the start of the year, and it made me pull the trigger because I've got more time to devote to it now because I'm not driving all over the city. So there's positives you can take. Obviously, everyone, I've had a small, or like some people, have had a small decrease. Luckily, it hasn't been a large one like a lot of industries. And lucky I don't run a gym, because otherwise I would have been shut down overnight.
Yes.
So, and I'm lucky enough to have a very loyal bunch of clients that are still sticking around and doing the online stuff. So I can't complain with the way things are, and it's made me innovate and to think outside the box, which I think is important for anyone that's listening as well.
Oh, I think that's well said, Daniel. I love it.
No, well, they put me on the spot, but yeah, that's the way things are, but that's all good.
I felt like I've just sat here and lectured you about how awesome I am for half an hour. I thought I should actually be polite and actually ask Daniel a question instead of being such a selfish guy. So but
that's all good. I'm here to hear your story. So that's the whole point of this. So we can, but I appreciate you sharing your story, Edward. I think there's some awesome lessons that people can take out of this. You've obviously got a very good, interesting perception on things. There's not a lot of people who can say they've been in your situation and come out of it better, especially what the stats are like these days with veterans that are that do end up homeless and that do end up worse and down a bad track. So you've done well and obviously you wouldn't have been where you are with your wife and your family and everything, where if things, if you hadn't have actually pulled yourself out and got into selling those shopping centre goods.
Yeah, and I was really good, actually. It was funny. I remember one day I worked, the Easter show? Easter show?
Back in the days when you could have an Easter show?
Oh, yeah. That was before, the virus came out and Brad Pitt came to save us, right? But I made like $800 in a day at the Easter show. And I was pretty much all commission. It was like $100 you get as the token for coming.
Yep.
And it was like $900. It was like $100 for here you are, Ed. And then I was like $800 at the end of the day. I'm like, oh yeah,
nice.
Yes.
Well, that's a lot of money for, when you're not used to earning a lot back in the day. That's a lot of money. The first time you see that, that's pretty cool. When you get that, even, most people would be happy with $800 a day anyway. Even now, you're not going to say no to it.
Yeah, so good memories.
Well, mate,
Daniel, thank you. You're a great interviewer. I appreciate you.
thanks for your time, Edward. I really enjoy your story, and I will encourage everyone to go and check out your LinkedIn profile, find out more about your programs, and even just interact with you online. You're very approachable, and you're a good bloke, and I appreciate your time.
And just before you go, can we just get a photo for our fans? Can you do like your awesome pose?